James Dolan has long established himself as one of the shittiest owners of all time when it comes to owning a sports team, and this is honestly an unbelievably high bar to pass. It has kind of just been a common thing with a lot of sports fans, which is just you don't consider the owner as a part of the team because they're usually just egotistical assholes who are either really cheap or just sucky people overall, or most of the time a combination of both, which is kind of a weird combination to have when you're owning a sports team because you ideally want to win and spend money to win. But that's not either here nor there. What I want to talk about. But James Dolan is a big asshole. He owns the New York Knicks, and he has proven to be just a snobby little bitch the entire time he's owned the team. His douchebaggery goes long. It goes decades. It spans decades. One of the most notable examples of it is banning Charles Oakley from the game or from the stadium, from Madison Square Garden, due to the public feud that they've had going on for a while. And even when the Knicks were in the finals, he couldn't get over this feud. I literally think like members of the Knicks, former members of the Knicks, and like the NBA commissioner and NBA executives were literally asking him to like get over this feud with Charles Oakley, and James Dolan refused to do so. I'm not even going to talk about any of that. What I'm going to talk about is a story that has kind of been developing over the last few months, which is just the absolute insane surveillance that they have going on with the stadium. So I think this was first kind of made a big deal with their surveillance that they have in MSG back in April with this Wire article, where it basically talks about how they, I guess, tracked a few people who were going in the arena and tracked them like across all their movement in the arena. This includes like trans women, lawyers, protesters, and a lot more. Where they literally were just like using facial recognition software in the cameras of the arena and other sort of like information that they had on these people, and made sure that they knew where they were at every single living moment of the time that they spent in MSG. It is absolutely insane. It is absolutely ridiculous. And it is crazy that this is something that a professional sports team arena is allowed to do and is allowed to have this type of information. And it's kind of, it seems like not that big of a story that a sports team is tracking people and keeping this information on people throughout the entire time they spend at the arena. But this is just a start. Today, another massive story came out about the New York Knicks and the Madison Square Garden and James Dolan specifically. And it just shows like how insane the surveillance ecosystem, I guess, that they have at MSG actually is. And it's because a massive list of celebrities that have, I guess, attended MSG or have like stated that they're Knicks fans or something of the case has been, I guess, leaked by the Shiny Hunters hackers. And for those who don't know, Shiny Hunters is like this hacking organization that kind of just hacks a bunch of companies that hold people's data and then offer them or like hold the data for ransom. And they did this back when I was, it was my last month in college. They hacked Canvas, and my school is one of the schools that was affected, and they had my data, and I really didn't give a shit because if you want to cancel my finals and hold my data, I don't really give a fuck, Shiny Hunters. But I guess they also hacked MSG, or they hacked whatever MSG uses to hold their data. And the craziest thing is that they obviously held this data at a ransom, but due to, I'm assuming, the cheapness of anyone involved, they didn't pay the ransom. Shiny Hunters didn't get the ransom, so they leaked the information. And this is how we were able to attain this information in the first place. But the big story around this is that MSG, I guess, has a list of celebrities and has a bunch of like different classifications for them. It says like do not host if they're a risky person, and it has like different levels of risk. But I think one of the craziest things here, and I guess one of the big stories here, is that they have a label that is specifically just for LGBTQIA, which is kind of a crazy thing to have as like a random label along with do not host and high risk. And so like a big thing about the story is like these risk levels. I guess like one of the big people who were talking about this originally was a guy named Fat Joe. And he was one of the people who was labeled medium risk. And I guess there's 400 celebrities that are given a risk score, including all these people right here. And that's what makes these 400 entries unusual. But one of the crazy things is how many people are in this, I guess, what they call a talent database, which is there's 39,000 people in this database. That is almost double the capacity of Madison Square Garden worth of important people, I guess, or talent as they call it, in this database. And it also has the guests of these people as well. So it's not like it's just high profile people. It's literally anyone that these high profile people also bring into the arena. That's kind of insane. But once again, the crazy thing here as well is the LGBTQIA labeling. And the Wired article does list some of the people who are actually labeled here, with people such as Ricky Martin, Phoebe Bridgers, or Geese's Emily Green. And they were one of the 93 people who are marked LGBTQIA, which is a small number of the people who were labeled, I guess, out of the 39,000. But it still is kind of unbelievably weird that they have this sort of labeling for people, as well as it also tracks their race and gender identity on top of that. And it says some celebrities, but it's still crazy that they measure any of these people's celebrities and have any sort of database in any capacity about who actually enters their stadium. This is a kind of a massive fiasco that is going on because why do they have this? This is also one of the most extreme weird labels because like do not host could be like people who are assholes in the arena, people they want to ban. Risky people could be like people who have risky relationships or something like that, whatever they deem it, which is obviously probably not going to be the most thought out process of deeming people risky if this is also it's again one of the labels that they have. But the LGBTQIA label seems just to be nefarious for no reason. It does not make sense for why you have this in any capacity other than just singling these people out. It is kind of crazy. And this is also additionally crazy when, once again, the Wired article from 3 months ago talked about how they surveilled a trans woman who, minute by minute, it mentions it once again, minute by minute, as she moved throughout the venue. That's unbelievably weird. And it seems like, once again, they have a hyperfixation on this for kind of no reason. It's hard to tell. And I don't know if MSG or James Dolan or anyone associated with this giant list will ever address this because this is an absolutely insane thing to have, especially when you're already under scrutiny for being a weirdly surveillance state type of sports arena. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And now Wired also kind of gets the idea that the reason why this database exists is because they use it to like boost their agenda. They use it as a pack. They use it to give gifts to elected officials. But it doesn't make sense once again if why you have their sexuality or race or gender identity here, because that doesn't help any capacity. Maybe they just want to like say this is who we're not gonna give our tickets to or whatever. That could be one of the reasons why. It is a genuinely weird scenario to even see it even exist. And another thing too, which is also big as well, and I don't know if it's as in depth, but the Wired article also talks about how there was a 10.5 million entry dumped of people's personal information, which I guess was pulled from the Salesforce management system, which is kind of bad. And it goes back over a decade, with some being recently edited in June 6th. So that's also another massive leak, and we don't really know why they need this much information about your customers and also about any people at all in any capacity. Maybe they try to say it's for, I guess, marketing or something like that. I really don't know if that's going to be able to be justified. Once again, you have this celebrity list of like untouchable people that you have labeled. It's going to be hard to believe that you're using this in a genuine way. And so hopefully this becomes like an unbelievably massive story to, I guess, get James Dolan or the Knicks or Madison Square Garden to just explain why the fuck they have this information, especially this like sensitive race, gender, sexuality information, which kind of seems irrelevant a little bit. It just seems like it's a weird thing to have, and it doesn't really help that once again James Dolan is seen to be a massive asshole. I mean, he literally was one of the people who just turbo ruined the vibes, and in the only game that the Knicks lost in the NBA Finals, he had that whole extra security fiasco with Trump because he was sucking Trump's dick and allowing him to like come into the arena, where he was also like very excited to say, "Oh, Donald Trump will visit you in the White House because we won." Which I don't know if any of his players are going to actually follow him there. I wouldn't be surprised. But I think like it being James Dolan who has this type of information is not shocking because like just he wants to be seen as the biggest asshole of all time. It seems he wants to be seen as one of the most unlikable people of all time, and he just has ruined the vibes with whatever he did Game 3. He's ruined the vibes of just being a piece of shit and like blackballing one of his franchise's most renowned players in Charles Oakley. And he just, it seems to be a general piece of shit overall, which is unsurprising, once again, if you know anything about James Dolan. So I really hope that like a foot gets put on the neck of anyone who is able to explain why the hell they have this type of information. Actually has like any sort of justification for why they have this like seemingly extensive surveillance system that they have in the arena, that they can do minute by minute surveillance of whoever the hell they please. I really would love to know what the fuck is going on here, because it is crazy that you have any of this stuff or any of this capabilities. But that's really all I got for today. Hopefully we spread the word of this, and this hopefully is like a bigger story than I would assume the other surveillance one is that happened 4 months ago, because it kind of fizzled out, and we really didn't get any information from this. But hopefully this one is a pretty big story, because it is kind of just ridiculous that this type of sensitive information is getting held by Madison Square Garden for some reason. But that's it. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.